Good afternoon. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. This is Tuesday, June 20th, and welcome to our Westchester Weekly Update. We're going to go over a number of different issues that are pending in Westchester County this week. It's been a shortened week because we've just finished celebrating the Juneteenth weekend in many of our communities. There may be a couple more events coming up before the end of the month. But today we'll give you an update. We'll hear from the mayor of the village of Tarrytown, Karen Brown. She's been with us before, so she's back again to give us an update on all things Tarrytown. We have a presentation from a number of different individuals regarding our Project Alliance, Mental Health Crisis Response Team, which is one of the major changes that we implemented in order to effectuate a more cooperative relationship in dealing with certain kinds of incidents that arise. And we'll have our commissioner of the Department of Community Mental Health, Michael Orth, leading the charge, and other individuals speaking on that. Ken Jenkins, our deputy county executive, will join me for some other information updates that we're going to provide. So hopefully you will find it interesting and timely. We'll see. You'll be the judge of that. First, I want to start off by reminding people that we are 1 week away from primary elections. Primary elections a couple of years ago moved up to the month of June. They were traditionally in September. Now they're in June. Of course, last year, because of redistricting, there were two primaries, one in June, one in August. This completely confuses you. But we're back to a regular June cycle as far as we can tell. And then, so a week from today, on the 27th of June, individuals will go to the polls where there are competitive elections for either the Democratic or the Republican nominations for office. The Republicans have just two primaries in the county. There's a primary in the town village of Harrison for council member trustee, and there's also a primary in the city of Yonkers on the Republican side for the council seat in District 1. On the Democratic side, a more robust group of primaries are at hand. We have primary for the mayoralty in the city of New Rochelle. Also in New Rochelle, there are primaries in Council District 3 and Council District 4. Two county legislative seats that pivot around New Rochelle are also subject to primaries. County Legislative District 10, that is the northern end of New Rochelle, along with the unincorporated town of Eastchester and the village of Tuckahoe. And County Legislative District 11 has a primary. That's the rest of New Rochelle and all of the town and villages within Pelham. So that's on the ballot as well. All of that is the New Rochelle side of it. In the city of Mount Vernon, you have a primary for the mayoralty in Mount Vernon. You also have a primary for the two city council seats that are up for grabs in the city of Mount Vernon. You also have a primary in the village of Mount Kisco for the position of mayor. In the village of Mamaroneck, you have a primary for a village trustee slot on the village board of trustees. We also have in the city of Yonkers a mayoral primary, and there's also a primary for city council districts there as well. Now, when you get into districts, you really need to know the geography of your home community. You're welcome to check with the Westchester County Board of Elections. They can provide you the details. You can find out exactly what council district you live in, or if you're curious, what county legislative district you live in, to determine if you vote, exactly the candidates who are running and any other related information. Now, a number of years ago, we established in New York state legislation did it, created early voting in both primary elections and in the general election, and we are now in the middle of early voting. And the early voting times are they're in set locations and they're for set times. So make a note of this if I just mentioned one of the communities that you live in where you have a primary. There are no countywide primaries, so if you live in any of the places that do not have a primary, what I'm about to say doesn't affect you very much. But what we have in early voting today, Tuesday, the voting areas, the special areas where you vote early, will be open until 8 o'clock tonight for voting. On Wednesday, tomorrow, the polls at the early voting sites open at 8 a.m. and go until 4 p.m. And then Thursday, looks just like today, polls open at 12 noon and stay open until 8 p.m. on Thursday for early voting. On Friday, looks like Wednesday, polls open at 8 a.m. in the morning and go to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then Saturday and Sunday, which completes early voting, both the same time frames, the sites open at 10 a.m. and voting closes at 6 p.m. If you have not early voted by Sunday, there is no voting on Monday, and then next Tuesday is the primary day itself. If you haven't voted early or you didn't have reason to vote by an absentee ballot, you then must go to the polls next Tuesday, the 27th of June, Polls open 6 a.m. and they close at 9 p.m. And as I've indicated, there are specific set locations where you can vote early. I'll focus on those locations that are in the communities where there are primaries. You can vote at any of these locations, and there are additional locations anywhere in the county. But as an example, there's no primary in the city of White Plains, but you could vote early for any district in the county at the White Plains Board of Elections headquarters or at any of these other locations. In the city of New Rochelle, where you have a multiple number of primaries, there are 2 locations to vote early. One of them is at the City Hall Annex, which is 90 Beaufort Place. That's actually the backside of City Hall. City Hall fronts onto North Avenue, but behind the back of it, you make the 2 left turns, and you're on Beaufort Place, and that entrance is 90 Beaufort Place. That's the City Hall Annex, and you can early vote there in New Rochelle. You can also vote early at the United Methodist Church, which is on North Avenue, 1200 North Avenue, just south of the Wackagill section of New Rochelle. And you can vote there if you live any place in the county, but certainly anywhere in New Rochelle, or for that matter, Pelham. That may be the nearest voting location for you. If you live in the city of Mount Vernon, there are 2 voting locations. One is in City Hall in the heart of town, at the on Roosevelt Square, right in the heart of Mount Vernon. There's also a site set up at the Doles Center, which is located on South 6th Avenue and West 4th Street. And that center, which is known for recreation, senior programs, and so forth, is also set up for early voting. So 2 locations in the city of Mount Vernon. We have 3 locations in the city of Yonkers. The Riverfront Library at Larkin Plaza, Larkin Center, located just north of the downtown train station, is open for early voting. In addition to the Riverfront Library, the Will Library, Gritton Will Library on Central Park Avenue, just south of Tuckahoe Road, is open for early voting as well in Yonkers. And the 3rd location is the Nodine Hill Community Center, which is 140 Fillmore Street. Again, anywhere you live in Yonkers, you can vote at any of those 3 locations or any other ones when you're voting early. In Harrison, since we have Republican primary in Harrison, the early voting site in Harrison is at St. Gregory the Great's Church on Halstead Avenue. In Mamaroneck Village, where we have a trustee campaign going on in the primary, the Democratic side, early voting is at the Mamaroneck Town Center, 740 West Boston Post Road in Mamaroneck, right across the street from Boston Chicken. I assume lunch may be part of your plans if you vote. And then also in Mount Kisco, where there's a mayoralty primary, you can vote at the Mount Kisco Public Library, right in the heart of town. It has a 100 Main Street address, but it's right there in the heart of the village where the village hall is and the memorials for our veterans. So in those communities, New Rochelle, Harrison, Yonkers, Mount Vernon, Pelham, because the county legislative district goes into Pelham as well as in New Rochelle, and in Yonkers, you have opportunities to early vote. And again, that early voting goes on the next couple of days at set times. There are times you can go in the evening, times you go in the middle of the day or earlier in the day, and then after Sunday, day off from voting on Monday, primary day comes on Tuesday. The polls close at 9 o'clock on Tuesday night. And then the votes will be counted, and that will determine who the Democratic and Republican candidates will be for the November elections. And if that's all confusing, we try to make it as simple as we can, but you should know that this is your opportunity, if you live in any of these communities, to have your voice counted in the way that your communities are governed. And we understand that people focus very heavily on elections when it's the presidential season. Nothing is more contentious than the presidency. It's on everybody's minds. But who is the mayor of your community matters. Who sits in the Westchester County Legislature or on your city council, your village board matters as well, because they have authority and they make decisions that affect your lives in some ways, maybe more than the president of the United States does. But you may not know who they are, and you may not be able to find out that information easy. So we have great benefits as citizens. We have great rights as citizens. We have, as guaranteed in the Constitution, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. But with those rights comes a responsibility. And I believe it's our responsibility to study up on the issues and the candidates and to cast a vote so that the person that wins for public office has the support of the people who came out to vote. So this is your opportunity to have your say, and you can do that between now and next week. When the voting process is over, we elect people to positions of authority. And in the village of Tarrytown has elected Karen Brown to serve as the mayor of the village. The village has 12,000 people. It's right on the Hudson River. It is the gateway via the bridge to Rockland County. It's the gateway from the rest of New York State into Westchester County. So we appreciate that Mayor Brown puts our best foot forward. It's a beautiful riverfront community. It's got lots of great assets and attributes there. the Tarrytown Music Hall, and I don't know if I'm taking your speech away, Karen, but Tarrytown Music Hall, restaurants, festivals, a host of different things, and of course, issues as well. So I bring you the mayor. She's been here before. We're happy to have her back. The mayor of the village of Tarrytown, Karen Brown. Madam Mayor, thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Now I have to go to page 2 of my speech, George, because you took up some of my thing. Well, as first of all, I want to thank County Executive Latimer and Deputy County Executive Ken Jenkins in the back there for having me here today. Tarrytown, as many of you may know, is a mighty little village on the shores of the Hudson. We're a launch to the river, and we have the best view of the beautiful Mario Cuomo Tappan Zee Bridge that you can get on this side of the water. Not only is it a great place to look at the bridge, but Tarrytown is the home of a shared use path that walks across the bridge. It's a 3-mile walk, 6 miles, because we want you to come back, that goes across the Hudson and has amazing views. And while I'm here, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Tarrytown Police Department, Fire Department, and Volunteer Ambulance Corps who serves to help people in emergencies on that path, thousands and thousands of people every day. Further north from the bridge, you're going to find Tarrytown's downtown. And in Tarrytown, our Main Street has been voted Best Main Street in Westchester by Westchester Magazine. On our Main Street, we have restaurants that will serve you cuisines from around the world. We have a Spanish, Mediterranean food, a sushi, Chinese food, Mexican food, delicious barbecue, fusions of all kinds. We have retail shops that sell soccer apparel, and now we have a new sneaker shop. We have jewelry and gifts and books. A new program that we're having this year is called Open Streets Tarrytown. The village has been producing a series of monthly events in which we close down our Main Street to vehicular traffic and open it for shopping, dining, and strolling with a monthly theme. We kicked it off on Mother's Day with a Mother's Day brunch and held a fun Pride Night on June 10th. Our next Open Streets will happen in July, on July 15th, with a local history theme. And speaking of history, Tarrytown is seeped in it. We were getting Connie Coho of Revolutionary Westchester involved. We will have our own vision of the Antiques Roadshow with local experts, so you can bring down those odd finds hiding in your attic for a professional consultation. We'll have live music and some other fun activities on top of the usual dining under the stars. Or August 19th, the theme will be health and wellness, and in September, we'll be celebrating Hispanic heritage, so it's a good time to check out our top-notch shops and restaurants. I encourage any entrepreneur looking to open a business to look at Tarrytown. We have wonderful office buildings on Route 119, smaller offices in our downtown. We also have some retail shops waiting for a great new shop to come and offer wares and services to the people of Tarrytown and beyond. And we have a great active Chamber of Commerce, one of the best in the county. We also have a beautiful set of parks. We have Wilson Park on the top of the hill in Tarrytown. We have our beautiful Pearson Park at the river. And at Pearson Park, we have wonderful events. This year, we're going to be having a July 4th extravaganza in conjunction with our sister village, Sleepy Hollow. We're going to have food trucks, a kids zone, live music, and a great fireworks display for all to see. This year, we're also going to have Shakespeare in the park. Thanks to Irvington Shakespeare Company. Come see Pericles at Pearson Park on July 29th. We're hoping that an actor's strike will be avoided, and so there can continue to be theater and music across our great county and the country also. We have summer concerts at Pearson Park. Once again, we'll be hosting summer concerts on Thursdays at 7, where we host local bands, a lot of rock and roll and Americana. On Fridays, we host the Jazz Forum Arts, so bring a friend and a picnic and enjoy listening to good music by the water. Now, going back to the shared use path and going south a little bit, we also have in Tarrytown Lyndhurst Mansion, which is a beautiful National Historic Site. They are working very hard to bring new and exciting exhibits to Lyndhurst. They've made their grounds more accessible, so I encourage everybody to visit there. Most importantly in Tarrytown, though, and I think this is pertinent to Pride Month, is in Tarrytown we embrace people of all walks of life, and we're committed to the notion of liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness for all. So please come to Tarrytown. After you have voted, come to Tarrytown to celebrate, and come often, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. That's Mayor Karen Brown from the Village of Tarrytown. We appreciate the information, and let me just reinforce that it is a wonderful gateway community. People who come in from the west, the first place they see is Tarrytown, the waterfront, and the quaintness of the village. Let me point out, as she did, that there's a terrific relationship between the Village of Tarrytown and the Village of Sleepy Hollow. Probably no two communities in Westchester County have as close a working relationship. And what makes it a little tricky in the world of government is both of those villages sit in separate towns. So that cooperation has to jump through some governmental hoops, but they combine together for that Chamber of Commerce and the work that they do. They have some terrific parades. There is no better Halloween parade in Westchester County than the Tarrytown Sleepy Hollow Halloween Parade. And of course, the Ichabod Crane Washington Irving connection is very much prominent there. Sunnyside, just south of the village, right just below Lyndhurst. And then also Patriots Park, and I gather that the dividing line body of water goes through the park and has some Tarrytown and some Sleepy Hollow in the park. That is the site for the Saturday Farmers Market. It's really wonderful. It's a great park-like setting. There's music and place for the kids to run around. So if you're going to go to Tarrytown and visit both communities, feel free to do that. We at the county are working to complete repairs to the lighthouse that's located in Kingsland Point Park, and that's right on the border, right where they have the new complex from where the old GM plant was, and the connections, again, between Tarrytown and Sleepy Hollow are very prominent. So we hope that you'll visit. We hope you'll spend money there. We hope you spend money everywhere in Westchester. And Karen, thank you again for coming by. It's a pleasure. Karen Brown. Next up, I want to give you an update on where we are with the migrant asylum seeker issue in Westchester County. This is obviously a much broader issue. We've discussed it in some great detail now, well over a month in duration. What's happening at the southern border is a matter of federal policy. The governor of Texas has determined that he has to relieve his pressures by sending some of these asylum seekers by bus to different locations, primarily to New York City, which has a right to shelter law in place. And over the last year plus, Mayor Adams in New York City has accepted thousands of these asylum seekers, reaching a maximum point. He has reached out outside of the city, and of course you followed what's happening in the media, but from a Westchester standpoint, we've been willing to work with the city in a reasonable way to try to help some of the humanitarian realities of this thing as well. So right now in Westchester County, as we're speaking today, it is a moving target. Things do change. We currently have 129 hotel rooms spread out over 3 different locations where asylum seekers are being housed. In the aggregate, it's about 200 adults and about 95 children that are here in those 3 locations. The largest of the locations in terms of population is the Ramada facility on Tuckahoe Road in Yonkers. That's the first one that was identified about almost a month ago. We have subsequently had a group of 71 rooms at that location, 26 rooms at the Central Motor Court courtyard on Central Avenue in White Plains, right at the backside foot of Battle Hill on the border of Greenburgh. There are 26 rooms that are being occupied. And then the most recent one was in Ardsley, at Ardsley Acres on 9A, 32 rooms with 51 adults and 4 children. So in every one of these cases, we are working with the local governments and local nonprofits to manage this situation. Mayor Mike Spano of Yonkers, Mayor Tom Roach of White Plains and Mayor Nancy Kabulian of Ardsley have all been focused with the members of their team on trying to make sure certain basic services are provided. The city is responsible for the room and board, meaning the cost of overnight accommodations and 3 meals a day. That comes up from New York City. There are some costs that have to be borne outside of that. Notably, Westchester County's Department of Health is immediately involved in trying to make sure that every one of these families is properly checked out for health concerns, making sure that there are no diseases, particularly communicable diseases, that could create some external problems outside of the migrant groups that are here. So far, we've had good fortune in that area. Dr. Charlita Amler and her team have been very diligent in making sure we get out to survey and provide the necessary vaccinations, and not just for COVID, but in some cases for the basic diseases, childhood and adult diseases that can occur. The county has not yet needed to use backup security services. There are on-site security services, and then the professional police forces of each of these communities are focused on ensuring that there is safety for both the people who are there and then for the neighbors and the people surrounding them. We've had no incidents. We understand that there's a lot of rhetoric out there, and people assume certain things, or they project certain things, but we've had no incidents during the period of time of this month so far with the number of people we have here. And that is consistent with the experience that we had 5 years ago when, during the Trump administration, we had 1,000 migrant children placed in 4 different locations in the county, from Yonkers to Somers. That was done without any concern about public health and no concern about public safety. So we are approaching this in a managerial fashion. We know that there's more going on besides that outside of our jurisdiction, but that is the attitude we're taking. We think it's the strategy that we used to get through COVID. It's the strategy that we've used in a host of other different issues. It is compassionate, but it's also hard-headed, and it intends to accomplish the task. We hope that the federal government will take some action that's necessary to move this issue from sort of a dead center status quo to being resolved. We've already called for satellite court here in Westchester at the federal courthouse, and we've also called for amplified work visas, so that individuals who want to work, and most of these adults do want to work, that they can be gainfully employed and contribute to the society. But as of where we stand today, 129 rooms occupied in 3 different locations in Westchester County, and in the aggregate, we're a little less than 300 people here, well below the 1,000 that we had 5 years ago. Next up, we want to talk about an interesting program that we created a couple of years ago, Project Alliance. I'll touch on it briefly, but our guests can talk about it much more thoroughly. Project Alliance is a combination of resources put together through the aegis of the Department of Community Mental Health under the leadership of Michael Orth, our commissioner, who you're going to hear from in a second. It's working with a couple of organizations and also working with the police of Westchester County to try to be able to respond in an appropriate way whenever there is an incident, and to hopefully bring that incident to a successful conclusion. So let me invite up here, I believe we're going to hear from our commissioner, Michael Orth of DCMH. We also have with us Program Coordinator Christopher John, who will be here. Claire Hurst, who's director of MCRT, and also Ossining Police Chief Kevin Sylvester. So we're happy to have all of you here. Come on up to the microphone. I'm going to step out, and you're going to step in and tell us everything we need to know. Commissioner Michael Orth.
Thank you. Appreciate this.
Please come up closer.
Good afternoon. As County Executive shared, shortly after the release of the Rebadging Police Task Force report, several county departments were charged to draft a proposal in response to a particular recommendation for serving people with behavioral health challenges. Our Project Alliance Committee held its first meeting on April 13th, 2001. And our goal, as the county executive said, was to create a responsive system with skilled workforce and trained responders that included warm handoffs to services, a response that was empathic, compassionate, and respectful, the same as we would want for our own family members, and also a continuum of services. On August 3rd, 2021, we submitted a draft Project Alliance recommendation to County Executive Latimer with 5 key components as part of a continuum of crisis services, and you'll hear about it shortly from our lead, Christopher John, who's leading the effort in Project Alliance. I'm proud to share this afternoon that we have collectively created a continuum of crisis services, not just one program, but from the moment a 911 call is made for a behavioral health crisis response to the most appropriate intensive service, which is our mobile crisis response teams. This is cutting edge at both the state and the national level, the first mental health law enforcement continuum of co-response service. We also know that their cultures of law enforcement and mental health are quite different. And this would lead to significant learning curve, expectations, and trust that needed to be established. We're able to get to this point today because of the history of collaboration between our county departments, our local police departments, and the shared credibility and leadership of both Mark Giuliani and Christopher John, who are leading the DCMH effort, along with the tireless work of our mobile crisis teams, our provider agency, and most of all, our police departments that were willing to take a chance on this collaboration. And of course, this would not have been possible without the vision, the commitment, and the leadership of both County Executive George Latimer and Deputy County Executive Jenkins. While clearly there's still more work to be done, we most importantly are starting to see the results and the positive impact on our residents and community, which you'll hear more about this afternoon. So it's my pleasure to work with our departments to lead this effort. I will now pass it on to Chris John, who is leading our DCMH Project Alliance efforts. Chris?
Thank you, Commissioner Orth, and especially thank you, County Executive Latimer and Deputy Ken Jenkins. Without your support, we couldn't have made it this far with implementing Project Alliance. I'd like to take this time to share with you the 5 pillars of Project Alliance that culminates our crisis response for Westchester County specifically. As I think about when a person is in crisis, one of the first things anybody does is call 911. We wanted to take the time to train our Westchester dispatchers, our desk officers, our tour commanders on a newer evidence-based risk assessment tool and model to help identify when a person is at risk and to make an appropriate determination. Do we need to send out a police car to engage that person who is experiencing a behavioral health crisis? Or can we divert that person over to crisis counselors who can most appropriately manage that call telephonically, engage with them, use evidence-based language to provide the most appropriate support? So using our 911 diversion trainings that we've been implementing for our dispatchers, to date we've trained over 760 dispatchers, desk officers, tour commanders, and police officers in this new risk assessment model to better determine what do we do when a person's in crisis. Do we send out that cop car, or do we divert them over to crisis counselors? And I think we've done a great job in doing that. When I move into St. Vincent's Hospital, that's been tasked with taking those diverted calls from our police partners. To date, what we've done is given St. Vincent's Hospital some additional resources so that they can take those diverted calls from our dispatchers and provide the most appropriate level of care for that person's need. Some of those crises can relate to a mental health crisis, a substance abuse crisis, or just a situational stress that many of us can deal with on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes it's hard for us to just deal and manage based on our resources, based on our coping skills, and St. Vincent's and other professionals are trained to be able to manage those calls most appropriately. What we've realized is with those diverted calls, we received over 300 diverted calls from our police partners, and we've been able to manage them telephonically, connect them to existing or new resources, or meet with them in the community as needed. St. Vincent's is also taking our new 3-digit 988 suicide prevention lifeline number since July 16th of 2022. What's great about that is that they've also taken a significant number of calls from people in the community who are experiencing a crisis. To date, over 4,000 calls St. Vincent's have taken through 988 for Westchester specifically. I want to share those numbers with you for a specific reason. The numbers are great, absolutely, but the intent behind those numbers are more important. And why I say that is for the diverted calls, we're talking about roughly 20 calls a month where we did not have to send a cop car to a person who's experiencing a behavioral health crisis. For the 988 calls, we're talking about roughly 300 calls a month where we did not have to use police resources and can get that person connected to crisis counselors to manage those people's needs. So under 2% of those calls actually had to go back to our local police departments because we needed to create some scene safety, ensure that person's welfare within the community, and we were able to use our police partners to actually do what their job is, to respond to real crises within the community that are criminal, and let the non-criminal behavioral crises in the community be managed by the behavioral health providers in the community. We've also decided to provide some enhanced training for our EMS partners, knowing that they work very closely with police and with our behavioral health specialists. We want to give them some enhanced training on signs and symptoms of mental illness, how to engage with a person, how to use similar language with our police and our behavioral health specialists so that we can begin the de-escalation process and provide the most appropriate care as possible. We've also we've been delivering CIT training in Westchester County since 2006 under the leadership of Mark Giuliano. This is a week-long training, 40 hours worth of training that we're giving our police partners, knowing that they're engaging with a diverse range of people within our communities. We want to give them the additional skills so that they have the most appropriate lens to determine how best they can address a person's needs within the community. There are countless numbers of people within Westchester County, or I should say police officers, who have been trained in CIT. And I want to stress that CIT isn't a police-specific training, even though it's crisis intervention team training. I want to highlight that the team, or the T part of the CIT, is most critical. We want to build a partnership with our police partners, of community providers, residents, or anybody that wants to also rally around a person within the community to provide the most appropriate supports. So as we're delivering CIT training, we're also working with our community providers that can also work with our police partners to provide the most appropriate support. And the last thing that I want to talk about when it comes to Project Alliance is the mobile crisis response teams. We have 8 teams in Westchester County that is a unique partnership between police and behavioral health providers that co-respond based on that person's need to engage in the moment supports and to help determine in the moment what's the best course of action for that person. Our teams are made up of licensed clinicians, credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselors, and peers. Peers are people with lived experience who, based on that experience, can also give that back to a person who's experiencing a crisis. They've gone through some additional training, and they are an added resource and a needed resource to our mobile crisis response teams. They're all across Westchester County, embedded in or near to our police departments, working in collaboration with them. And just to even give you some additional numbers, just for this year, from January to May, our teams, all 8 combined, have engaged close to 1,500 individuals, all new people who are experiencing a crisis, where traditionally you would only potentially have police, a person's being transported to the hospital for a psychiatric or other type of evaluation, and those teams have been able to engage people in the community, provide the most appropriate support, and engage with our residents. So I'm more than proud to be a part of this. I'm more than proud to partner with Chief Sylvester and my Commissioner Michael Orth and the County Executive Latimer and Deputy Ken Jenkins to further this process. There's still a long way to go, but I think since we've begun, we've done a lot. So I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. And as Chris mentioned, we have 8 mobile crisis teams, and we're proud today to really celebrate one of them, the Family Services of Westchester Mobile Crisis Team. Family Services of Westchester has stepped up and been a real leader in this area. They have teams in Ossining, Mount Kisco, and Portchester. And today we're celebrating the specific work of the Ossining team, with the police chief being here and the team. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Claire Hurst, who's the director of the mobile crisis teams for Family Services of Westchester.
Good afternoon. So our teams became co-located with PCPD in May 2022, and shortly after in Ossining. And recently we moved into Mount Kisco as well. Since our first response in May 2022, we've responded to over 500 calls across all 3 sites. And that's mostly in Portchester and Ossining since we've been there longest. Our aim is always, and I think that's with we can speak for the other mobile crisis response teams who aren't here today, is really to respond to our calls, work with the person who's in crisis to de-escalate, always with empathy and compassion. We spend as much time as it takes to build relationship and rapport by establishing trust. Understanding that oftentimes we are encountering this person on their worst day. And so that's really very important when we go in. Our 3 teams work collaboratively in a client-driven, trauma-focused way. Quite a few of our calls, our cases overlap because we cover Mount Kisco, Ossining, and Portchester. And so, for example, we had a person in her mid-30s, and this call originated in Ossining. This person showed up at OPD with the clothes on her back and backpack. That's all she carried. And she was, upon further engagement, and after building some trust, we were able to discern that she had been escaping domestic violence. We also realized that she had immigrated from South America, had been housing insecure for close to 10 years. And so we got to work immediately. During that time engaging, the Ossining team engaged, we got a call from Portchester that she had shown up at the Portchester train station, Metro North train station, and had gotten ill. So Portchester PD engaged us. We rolled out as we normally do, and the team continued work, right? So our Portchester team continued to work with her, and subsequently we were able to connect her to the service providers that were appropriate, and help to transfer her benefits from New York City because that's where she had originally been. So we were able to help transfer her benefits from New York City to Westchester County and facilitate the process of her pursuing housing. And right now she is living in long-term housing and on the road to further independence, which is something that we like to hear. We had another young man in his late teens who was suicidal. He was struggling with the death of his mother. And shortly after the death of his mother, his girlfriend broke up with him. And we all know the teen years, very intense emotions. And so our team connected him to a local Westchester County hospital where he was further assessed and stabilized, and then we were able to connect him to mental health, where he is now doing very, very well. We have another mother, just another short example, another mother who had been dealing with the police due to some challenging behavior related to mental health. MCRT was able to build rapport with her over some time, and as a result, reduce the need for police to be called into the home. We were able to de-escalate situations in the home. Oftentimes, we are called out for the first time, and because we're able to encounter them in their time of crisis, we immediately can build trust. And so, as we are connecting them to services, we sometimes get other calls because they're feeling safe with us, and they feel like they can call us, and they have a listening ear. And we'll go out, we'll sit, we'll talk with them and help them to regulate. So we were able to do that subsequently on several occasions. And because we were doing that, then the police department did not have to receive those calls. So we were able to refer this person to individual and family therapy with FSW. And because it was an internal referral, we were able to prioritize them and get them the treatment without delay. As mentioned, our goal in every encounter is to offer a person a safe space in which to de-escalate and begin to formulate a long-term plan for supportive community connections. We appreciate Sergeant Dress and Officer Eddie Ramirez out of Mount Kisco, Chief Sylvester of Ossining PD, and Chief Rosabella and Cap Nielsen in Portchester PD for welcoming us and facilitating our relationship with our catchment areas. We enjoy and are committed to what we do, and hopefully this is the continuation of a movement. I don't know if CE Latimer is here, but personally, it would be great if we can see MCRT in each of our communities working alongside PD and EMS. So thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Claire. And along with us is Karen Fink, the Vice President of Family Service of Westchester, who's really been a champion. Our final speaker, I just want to introduce, this was one of the core tenets of our county executive and deputy county executive, and it was really respecting and working with our local communities and not creating something different, but really building on the leadership, the strengths, the culture of a community. And one prime example is our next speaker, Ossining Chief Sylvester, who really embraced this model, who already had a lot in place, would enable us to go in there and build on the mobile crisis team. So it's my pleasure to welcome Chief Sylvester.
Thank you, Michael. I am so thankful to our county executive, our deputy county executive, their team for putting this together, for hearing the call from our neighbors, for having the vision to make this happen and the commitment. This is a significant commitment of resources to make a mobile crisis response team happen throughout Westchester County. For every good idea we have and we put out there, what really defines the result is going to be the rollout. I'm so proud to share what we've done in Ossining and what I've heard from my colleagues around the county. But in Ossining, the first thing we did with our mobile crisis response team is demanded that they be fully embedded in our police department. Our particular version of this project includes mobile crisis response team that is headquartered in our building and is there all day working with our police officers, attending our briefings, listening to calls for service, speaking to people at the window as they come in with calls for service, answering phones, speaking to our residents directly as these things happen. When your only tool is a hammer, everything becomes a nail. And while I've worked with some tremendously talented and compassionate police officers, what we know is that no matter how good you are, when your job is enforcement, things tend to go that way. And what the mobile crisis response team really represents to our community is that tool that we were missing. It's that opportunity to face our neighbors that are in crisis. And a lot of what we've talked about today is folks that are in some sort of acute mental health crisis, and that's what a lot of people think about. But what our team has really done is they've gone out and spoken to people that are dealing with domestic violence issues, people that are facing food insecurity, housing insecurity, children that are dealing with the trauma of a challenging household at home. They're partnering with our schools to address issues in our schools with young people that are just struggling with life. And they've become that extra piece that rounds out our police department and really turns us into a full-service community building organization. So we are so proud of what we've accomplished. I've listened in my office as I've heard people coming to our building and outside of our building. It's not the mobile crisis response team they're coming for. They're coming for David and they're coming for Nicole on a first name basis, and not just coming to the police department because there's some problem, but they're proactively coming and looking for services. This team doesn't just go out and solve problems. They're actually going back to people after we've seen them for enforcement where we don't know what we're walking into, and cops are now addressing things and saying, hey, this is for the crisis team. And the team's able to go back out there and deliver resources, maybe not from themselves, but to connect them with other agencies that really can take people and put them in a more stable place. So we're so proud of what we've done. This is really the first stop in the evolution of something that's going to continue to grow. We're really, really proud of what we're doing. So thankful to county government for providing us with this, and we're excited for all the new that comes after this.
Well, again, I want to thank our guests. We also have the mobile crisis team here of Ossining, so we want to thank them for all the work they do, all your effort, and really engaging the community. We're very proud of our accomplishments with Project Alliance, and as the chief said, more to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Claire, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Thanks, Karen. Chief, it's always a pleasure. Commissioner, thank you. That was as thorough a report as you're going to hear on our mobile crisis response teams of Project Alliance. And I want to highlight, which you said already, this was one of the 2 or 3 major recommendations that came out of our police reform task force, which came into effect 3 years ago. We were already heading in this direction. It was mandated by the governor at the time, And this particular proposal came out with unanimous support, but now $6+ million later, we've stood behind it in these locations. And of course, we always look if we have a successful program and how we can expand it, given the resources that we have. But outstanding job by all those who participated, and they spoke well, and we hope that gives you good insight into a major area of public policy. Perhaps you don't think about it until the incident happens. And when that incident happens, you're thankful, as I am, that professionals like this are available to be able to respond. And for the folks in the room from Ossining, thank you very much for being here today. So we're going to cover some other areas very quickly now with just a little bit of time left on the clock. Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive, is going to touch on some of the efforts we're making now to try to curb youth tobacco sales. You may recall at the end of last year, we took some action to expand money for anti-tobacco education and enforcement as a response to concerns about young people smoking and what that could represent in the society. This is a progress report on part of that. Ken?
Thanks, George. And certainly, again, it goes inconsistent with all of the things that we've been working on behalf of the people of Westchester County, and whether those things have to do with community mental health and the work that's being done out of Project Alliance, or certainly in this particular effort, an effort on improving the health of our young folks specifically, and anyone that is getting involved and engaged in the tobacco sales effort. So last year, there were plans announced by the county executive to talk about $3 million in funding for a Westchester tobacco-free program aimed at curbing sales of tobacco, specifically that flavored tobacco products, which are illegal in the state of New York for those folks, period, and vaping products to youth in Westchester County. And while Westchester County already boasts some of the lowest smoking rates in the state, this stepped-up effort is going to reach our school-age children and intends to bring that smoking rate even lower. So to begin the Westchester Tobacco-Free program, the county's Department of Health began hosting training sessions and informational meetings with the merchants so they can better spot our youth aiming to gain access to tobacco, flavored tobacco products, and vaping products here in Westchester County. This particular robust and proactive response will help fund a public education campaign for all of our residents, highlighting the dangers of tobacco usage and to support our local community efforts to reduce smoking. Westchester's youth have far too great an opportunity to begin using tobacco, flavored tobacco products, and vaping products, which is exactly what big tobacco companies need to get new users already addicted to the addictive and deadly products. This new program will utilize the already strong tools available to us in our county government and use those to their greatest extent to stem this tide and protect our kids from exposure to these harmful products. During the merchant trainings, tobacco sales, licensed tobacco sellers are reminded of the current law, which prohibits tobacco products for anyone under 21 years old, and they're given a compliance checklist to ensure it's being followed. The merchants are also informed that beginning this summer, the Westchester County Department of Health will enhance inspections and educational visits to shops that are licensed to sell tobacco products. As a result of this program, stores may notice inspectors coming into their facilities several times a year. Westchester County currently has, per the New York State Department of Health, the lowest smoking rate in the state at just 7%. And once again, when we have particular programs, like you just heard with Project Alliance, here with Chief Sylvester from the Ossining Police Department, working through Acting Commissioner Terrence Rayner and the folks in public safety, working with our rangers to be able to do so many different things to go into those various areas and to be able to do operations to ensure that the tobacco products are not being sold to people that are under the age of 21, and no vaping products are being sold, even those that may be legal to have, but not in any of the stores since they're not licensed sellers of those particular products at this time. So again, it's going to be a great project. It's the beginning of our Westchester tobacco-free Westchester program, and that will start happening. And what we have tried to instruct all the retailers through this particular program. The vendors that had stood so strong trying to ensure that there was going to be an opportunity for them to continue to sell specifically menthol-flavored products, that there's going to be a strong effort, and do not be that particular location that will get shut down because they're selling tobacco products to underage folks. So under 21, and we're going to work really hard on that. Then we're going to follow that up with a robust education program and a smoking cessation program that we have in place already. But again, because of the county executive's efforts in combining all of these things together, to be able to make sure that we are educating folks for those that want to quit tobacco with the various programs that we have under Community Mental Health, our Department of Health, and certainly working with all of our public safety folks around the county to make sure that we're making a difference for the lives of those young folks in Westchester County. So that program is getting ready to kick off. The trainings already has happened, and we are going to, again, have strong efforts to be making sure that that happens. So for those folks that are paying attention and watching this afternoon, make sure that you don't have any of those young folks that are under 21 buying tobacco products for you, and making sure on top of that those local stores will not be able to participate in that. There are significant penalties for these stores that may be participating in that, not just the store getting shut down, that's the ultimate penalty, but those folks that sell lottery tickets and they sell beer and other licensed products from the state, they can lose their license. In the third instance, they lose their license for a year. That's a significant source of revenue, and again, we want to make sure that all of those retailers are well prepared not to be in that case. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Ken for his leadership in this particular area. We have Joan McDonald, our operations team, working on the final touches for our public education effort, which we will roll out now in the fall as young people go back to school. And we think that those two combinations, the education and the enforcement, will help us reduce what is already a low number in tobacco usage in Westchester County. We have the lowest number in the state, 7% of any county, and including the 5 boroughs of New York City. But we're still striving to do more, and this enforcement effort is one of those major efforts. Let me run past a series of recreational events to put on your calendar. Bicycle Sundays are continuing along the months of June, the last weekend in June, and through the months of July. With the exception of the 4th of July Independence Weekend, we will have Bicycle Sundays this coming weekend, which is the last Sunday in June, and following that, July 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th. We'll take off August, and we'll be back in business for September and October. Bicycle Sundays on the Bronx River Parkway, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's great fun, great recreation. It's a long-time tradition. It's been going on for over 40 years, and it's a wonderful opportunity and program. On the evening of Monday, July 3rd, that's a little less than 2 weeks from now, that's Independence Day weekend, we have our big fireworks and music fest scheduled for Kensico Dam Plaza. A lot of people come to this, so plan to be there early so you can get an appropriate space to spread out your blanket. The pre-concert entertainment begins at 5 o'clock. I'd get there before that. We have the FDR Drive Band, which is one of the notable cover bands that perform all summer long in different concerts. They begin at 7. Spectacular fireworks. The historic Kensico Dam is the backdrop, and the fireworks begin about 9:15 in the evening. Admission and parking are free, but we suggest you carpool. It is a very difficult environment to find a parking space once it starts to fill up. If you can take Metro North to the Valhalla station, coming out of White Plains on the Harlem line, or coming south, that is a wise thing to do. And we want to thank the Westchester County Parks Foundation, the Parks Department, and support from the Captain Lawrence Brewing Company for their work on all of this. This coming weekend, we have the next in our series of Heritage Festivals. It is the African American Heritage Festival this Sunday, June 25th, from noon to 6 at the aforementioned Kensico Dam Plaza. We've had a number of these already, honoring the Albanian American community, the Asian American community, the Polish American community, and so forth. And we have a lot more coming up in July and August. But the next one, the proximate one, is the African American one, coming up this Sunday, 12 to 6 at the Kensico Plaza. We also want to highlight that we have a concert to honor veterans coming up on Friday, July 21st. That's an evening event at the Westchester County Center. Doors open at 6, concert begins at 7. It's an oldies concert, so if you're watching this and you're not at least as old as one of us, he's younger than I am. This is like Tony Orlando and Jay and the Americans. I know this is only heard on the Drifters, WCBS FM, but It honors our veterans, and of course, many of our veterans, those who served us in Vietnam and those that are still with us from Korea or World War II, grew up on this music. So our head of Veterans Affairs, Ron Tochi, along with Natasha Caputo, who heads up our film and tourism effort, have this concert structured. It is also the last event over the course of a weekend where we are hosting in Westchester County the New York State American Legion Convention, it's known as the Department of New York Convention. That will be held in the prior week at the Westchester Marriott and the Sleepy Hollow Hotel, and then this big event will follow their dinner that evening and should be a lot of fun. But this concert is open to everybody, and we're going to specifically honor our veterans with free attendance. So we're very much looking forward to this event. That's on your calendar. So you've got Bicycle Sundays, you've got Heritage Festivals, you've got the July 3rd fireworks display and music at Kensico Dam Plaza. You've got the Veterans Concert on the 21st. There's more coming. We're going to make good use of our parks over the course of this summertime and give you a good experience in all of these different locations. And then finally, if you have insomnia, we're going to do it early in the evening, we have State of the County message coming up. That's going to be on Thursday, June 29th at 6 p.m. I look forward to, in the middle of the year, giving you an update on where we are in Westchester County. This is more of a thematic opportunity to talk about where we are and where we intend to be, a little less on the specifics as we try to do in this every week, but also just to give you perspective, the speech is targeted, as most of these are, to the legislative body. It's held in the legislative chambers. We made that decision 6 years ago to bring it into the legislative body. So we're talking to the Westchester County Board of Legislators, hear the things that we see happening, give you an update on our finances, give you an update on some of the legislative initiatives that we have, and then to speak again thematically about where we're going. That will be most likely broadcast, certainly on Facebook, perhaps on News 12, and we'll see. And you'll have a chance, if you're interested, in getting the bigger picture of where we are. That's going to do it for us today. I want to thank all of those who were here to speak, the mayor of the village of Tarrytown, Karen Brown, Commissioner Michael Orth of our DCMH, and some of the other individuals, particularly our friend Kevin Sylvester, who is with the Ossining, is the head of the Ossining Police Department, police chief, and some of our not-for-profits. Really excellent work they're doing. Gives you a little flavor of what's happening in Westchester. We'll be back next Monday. We'll continue to give you updates on the migrant asylum seeker issue and on everything else that is on our plate. I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive. Thank you for watching. Have a good day, a safe week ahead. We'll see you next week.